Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. This was a quote popularized by the late Carl Sagan, an exceptionally brilliant man. This quote would have been perfectly sensible to me a few years ago, even though at the time, the irony would have been lost on me. We live in an extremely religious society. Virtually everyone believes and is convinced that a higher power or powers exist. To think otherwise is to be delusional or absurd. We believe extraordinary claims, but most of us do not even possess ordinary evidence. I do not condemn you. I do not believe I have a superior intellect to you. I do not think you are stupid, but I do think that you are mistaken. And before you get upset, hear me out. I am an atheist. I wasn't always one, but I am now. I should probably elaborate on who an atheist is, because I am certain that most people have the wrong idea. I am certain, because I used to be most people. An atheist is not someone who hates God. An atheist is not someone who rejects God or worships Satan. An atheist is not someone who says that there is no God. Some atheists do, but not most. An atheist is someone who doesn't believe in the existence of a God, any God. I know this is shocking to most people. How can anyone doubt God's existence? Proof of God is everywhere. You just want to sin and live a life that is unaccountable. These thoughts are probably going through the minds of many of you, and I understand. I used to have them. For to answer the question, why don't you believe in God, in one sentence, it would be, there is no good evidence for the existence of a God, and plenty of reasons to suspect that there probably isn't one. If you're still following, you probably want to know what I mean, so let me elaborate on why there probably isn't a God. But first, what is God? God means different things to different people, but I will restrict my definition to the Christian God, as this God is the most familiar to me. The Christian God, as understood by most people, is an eternally existing sentient being that created the universe and everything in it, including us. This God is alleged to be omnipotent, omniscient, omnibenevolent, omnipresent. Essentially, this God is all in all. This God is also alleged to be interested in human interaction and has revealed himself in the past to humans, inspiring many to write portions of the Christian Bible, and revealed himself in the flesh 2000 years ago in the person of Jesus Christ, who paid the ultimate price for humanity's redemption from death or hell, the punishment for the sin of our first parents, Adam and Eve. In my discussion here, this is what I mean by God. There are several arguments that can be advanced to make the existence of this God unlikely. If you are still following, allow me to outline some of them. First, many books of the Bible are filled with scientific and historical errors and contradictions. Most Christians believe that the first 5 books of the Bible were written by Moses. Most Christians are wrong. The current scholarly consensus is that the Genesis and the other 4 books were written and compiled by multiple individuals around the 6th or 5th century BCE. Evidence that Moses wrote only a part, if he wrote anything at all or even existence, is found in the books themselves. For example, the last verses of the book of Deuteronomy chronicles events that occur after the death of Moses, and Moses is referred to in the third person in almost every instance. You can see Numbers 12 verse 3 for one instance. The first 2 chapters of the Bible discuss the creation story. 2 creation stories. There's one in chapter 1 and another in chapter 2. These stories are not only contradictory, but from what we know about science, they could not have happened. In Genesis 1, we see plants being created before the sun, day and night existing before the sun and moon, and light being created on day 1, but oddly before the sun is created. In case you never noticed, in the beginning there was nothing, but God was hovering over the waters, even though there was nothing. Seems water may be eternal after all. There's a lot more I could say on this point, but I will address the unreliability of the Bible briefly. The entire Exodus account either did not happen at all, or did not happen as described in the Bible. There is zero evidence that the Israelites were ever enslaved in Egypt, or that millions of them wandered in the Sinai desert for 40 years. All evidence indicates that they have been in Palestine the whole time. Number 2. We have a very good idea of how humans came on the scene, and it wasn't from mud. Most people in this part of the world have either never heard of the theory of evolution or scoff at the idea, and this isn't surprising. Our educational system isn't exactly world class. Every race has some kind of origin story. The Yorubas have their creation myth, the Benis have theirs, the Greeks had theirs, and the Jews had theirs. It's in Genesis. Yes, the story of God sculpting a man from clay breathing life into him and fashioning a wife from his ribs is a myth. You are probably upset, but you probably have no problem accepting that the story of Zeus fashioning man is a mere fable. So why would you think that out of all the hundreds of creation stories that ancient people believed, the one believed by the Jews was somehow the only correct one? I think I know why. It's because it's what you've always believed, and you've never really questioned it, never really considered other creation myths. There are hundreds of creation myths, many of which are false by sheer probability alone. The Jewish version is false. I'm not going to give a detailed explanation of how we know that the theory of evolution is correct. I will provide links for further study. If you think the Greek creation story or any other creation story is ridiculous, but that of Genesis is correct, you have a double standard. Number 3. An omnipotent, omniscient, omnibenevolent God cannot exist. Former pastor Dan Baker said in one of his books, the Christian God cannot be both omniscient and omnibenevolent. If God were omniscient, then he knew when he created Adam that Adam would sin. He knew human beings would suffer, regardless of whether or not the existence of evil can be theologically explicated. An all-knowing creator deliberately places humans in its path. This is at least criminal negligence, if not malice. I agree with this. No matter how you spin it, the problem of evil cannot be squared with an omnipotent, omniscient, omnibenevolent God. Either he has the power to prevent evil and doesn't know about it, or doesn't care, or he doesn't have the power to prevent evil and isn't all powerful. Regardless, these three attributes cannot be possessed by any being that exists outside of our imaginations. There's also the problem of free will. If God is omniscient, then he already knows what his future actions are. And if he does know, then he can't do otherwise. Therefore, an omniscient God, if he exists, is not free. Number 4. The Bible is not the word of a moral God. Many Christians believe that their morality comes from God, that God has commanded them to love their neighbor, be honest, and to do good. But this is false. This idea seems innocuous, but it's actually telling. If you need to be commanded by God to be a decent human, then you're not a decent human being. Morality is not grounded in the Bible, and the Bible can actually be an inspiration for immoral acts. Let me explain. The average Christian loves to emphasize on how they are not obligated to follow the Old Testament, that Christ came to fulfill the law and bring them into a better covenant. Maybe you've never really considered how ridiculous this position is. If your theology is correct, the New Testament God is the same Old Testament God. You know, the one that never changes, whose words abide forever, the same yesterday, today, and forever. This means that the same gods that killed everyone on the planet, men, women, babies, in the days of Noah, killed all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, yes, including babies, then added thou shalt not kill to his 10 commandments just before commanding his chosen people to slaughter the rightful inhabitants of the land of Canaan, including their young children, and to take their virgins as sex slaves, is the same God that told you to turn the other cheek. If this doesn't make you think, I don't know what will. I know many people have never thought of this, but I know that some have sold out their humanity and found a way to justify their atrocities in the Bible. Atrocities that make Hitler look like a saint. Lastly, on this point, it is important to mention that Jesus did not make things better. He made it worse. Jesus introduced the concept of hell, a place where people were punished for all eternity, irrespective of the nature of their sin, including the sin of disbelief. Do I deserve to burn in hell because I do not believe that a God sacrificed himself to appease himself as a result of a sin my supposed ancestor committed? Is a God that saw to it that I was born with original sin moral? Then lastly, number 5. We no longer need a God to explain anything. Our ancestors can be forgiven for believing that there was a man in the sky responsible for lightning, that an angry deity caused earthquakes and demons caused diseases, but we can't. Not after all we've learned. The more we understand our world and ourselves, the more we realize that there is no ghost in nature. Almost every superstitious belief has been debunked, and at this stage, the supernatural, whatever that means, is the least likely explanation. If we don't have an explanation, the honest thing to say is, I don't know. There's a lot more I could say. I could explain why I don't believe in miracles, and why no one else should. I could explain why I don't believe personal religious experiences are proof of the supernatural, but I will stop here for now. Feel free to reach out to me for any questions, but try to be polite. This will be impossible for many people, but such is the way of the world. If I could ask for one favor, I would ask that you be open-minded, that you critically consider your beliefs and ask yourself the question, what I believe, is it true? And if what I believe is false, am I willing to change my mind? I am not asking you to agree with me. I am not asking you to change. I am not asking you to become an atheist. I am merely asking you to question your beliefs and come to a rational conclusion. Reason over faith.